Welcome to Coffee Time Again, exposing the truth. Dale at the microphone, the show that demonstrates how history repeats itself. He digs into the past, shows what happens, and how it is happening now. Follow the path of history to where it goes, then relate it to today to reveal the connections. The culture that forgets its history has no future. A history buff and loves to talk about it, going back as far as ancient Greeks and Egyptians and beyond. So grab your coffee, your chair, and listen to the show. Hope you enjoy.
Good morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time zone you happen to be in today. My name is Dale. I am the host of Coffee Time Again, where we expose the truth. And today the truth is from Captain Kirk himself, the real Captain Kirk himself. He's going to be talking about the First Amendment, and there's one particular part of the First Amendment he's really interested in, and reading part of his writings this morning, I'm going, I like it a lot. So I think you will like it too, and you'll understand more about it. And we're talking about a very little known part of the First Amendment that is hardly ever used properly, if used at all in any conditions, in my opinion. So let's get started with it. Let me introduce Kirk Beck to you, otherwise known as Captain Kirk or Kirk, whatever you, if you're a Trekkie friend or not. Welcome to the show, Kirk.
Good to be here, Dale.
All right, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm over the hill, so to speak, but I'm still fighting. I've been involved in education for over 40 years. Most of my time teaching mathematics, but on a couple of occasions I've had the opportunity to teach civics in the public schools. And I've got some good news for you. When you give the kids the truth, they kind of like it. They know it's outside the box because they don't hear the truth very often. But they appreciate people who tell the truth. I always like to tell people who are kind of down on the young ones that I taught 80 of them over the course of a couple of years. And every time I showed them the movie, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, I always asked them, how do you rate this movie on a scale of 0 to 10? I never got anything less than an 8. Most of them were 9s, but I actually had a lot of 10s. These are kids watching a 1939 movie with Jimmy Stewart and saying, my God, that's one of the best movies I've ever seen.
Yep.
Why is that? Because that man stood for something. He stood against a mountain of oppression and obstacles, and he never wavered. He never quit. And that's why those kids like that movie so much. Our kids need heroes, and it's about time that especially people over the age of 60 ought to be doing a lot more than sitting around and figuring out how to play golf. Anyway, I have been teaching in the schools for 40 years, most of that time in private schools, only 7 years in public schools. I had my first real encounter with the police when I was a young boy. I was riding on the handlebars of a bicycle, and Officer Cecil Fisher in Sioux Falls, South Dakota stopped us and gave us a ticket. Now, these were the days when there wasn't any question about defunding the police.
No.
Because our punishment was we had to go down with our dads to the police station, and the same man who gave us the ticket had us sit in a room, and for 25 minutes we watched Jiminy Cricket's movie on bicycle safety. That was our punishment.
I like it.
Yeah, it wasn't. It was for education purposes. It wasn't a way of raising money for the city and county government. Well, my next real encounter I should add a few other things. I'm happily married for almost 50 years. I have 3 sons, and I have 3 grandsons. I was one of 3 brothers, so we got men all over the place. And all I'm asking is that men to start acting like men.
Well, I have 3 sons myself, but I got 9 granddaughters.
That's really unusual.
Yes.
So I was courting my wife to be, and at 2 o'clock in the morning, I was traveling across town in Denver, Colorado, and I got a ticket for rolling stop at 2 o'clock in the morning. And that, I guess that started the process of thinking, what's going on here? What I obviously haven't hurt anybody. There's not even anybody awake right now. But nevertheless, they're going to get me for $50, whatever it was back then. And it just started the process of thinking about what is the law. Now, at one point, I was so intrigued with it that I actually went to law school. But I didn't want to learn about stare decisis. I wanted to learn the law. I really didn't know what I was grabbing for. I know now it's called the common law. That's what I want to become really knowledgeable at. I already know a lot more than most people. I know more than some judges. Most lawyers are very good at procedure. They don't know law. And they certainly haven't studied constitutional law. So with that, I began my study. I've probably been in court dozens of times, sometimes as a defendant. I like it better when I'm the plaintiff. And a couple of times I've had some really enlightening experiences on the jury. So that's kind of my background. I'm an educator. And now, as I say to people, I really want to teach. I want to teach people something that really, really matters. The preservation of the Union is what's at stake.
Yes, from what I read, those two articles you asked me to read, the one about Captain Kirk there in chapter 50, and a little article before that when I read both of them, and that really ignited my fire to interview you. I mean, I was interested in it to begin with, but when I read those articles, I really got interested because most people don't know what you're talking about.
Unfortunately, that's true.
Yeah, I mean, I asked my group at breakfast this morning to name me the rights under the First Amendment. They left one out. Guess which one it was, Kirk?
Petition for redress of grievances.
Right, that's the one they didn't know about. And I says, yeah, that's what I'm going to be talking about today. I'm going to promote this thing 7 ways from Sunday because I think it's needed to be known, particularly by attorneys, judges, jury members, the public, because I think you can, or I can go into court with a well-processed affidavit and get justice, which is sadly lacking in our country today.
Oh, so well said. I've been in court many times and I've tried a lot of different things. And I'm simply of the mind now, I just need the affidavit, the oath of office, the Constitution.
Right.
And hold the government officials accountable to them.
Yes.
I want to say, Dale, that at the conclusion of this, I have a free gift for all the listeners. I'll explain it a little bit later, but
all right, we'll get it there. We'll make sure you have time to get the gift in, and I'll put it. Normally, what I do is I put the website right above your head when we edit it. But I'm free gift up there this time, so people who watch it can see it.
Okay.
So anyway, you answered the first question. What got you started doing this? Could you tell us about the jury panel you served on that introduced you to the affidavit process?
Oh boy, I sure will. It's unusual. The first 2 times I was paneled on a jury, I ended up being excused both times because I had 5 minutes to address the court. And when I got done talking, they wanted me out of there. But the second time was the most interesting. A man and his mother were on trial for 17 felonies having to do with with a real estate scam. I was sitting right behind the defendant when he made a statement to the judge. And the judge said, "Sir, you were given an opportunity to have an attorney. You've chosen not to have one. Therefore, you're going to follow all the rules." He continued to reprove the defendant, who was defending himself.
Mhm.
Mother was defending herself. But the whole time that he was being admonished by the judge, he's shaking his head. He's making it very clear to me, I'm sitting right behind him, he doesn't agree with what the judge is saying. So that was step one. The next thing that happened in the courtroom was mind-boggling to me, because I knew enough about the law to realize, my God, this is really serious. The district attorney, in addressing the panel, said the following: assume for a moment that the defendants have been wearing purple, and there's a statute in our state that disallows people from wearing statutes. Now, speaking to the jury, she said, "Now you and I would disagree with that law. We think that's a bad law. Nevertheless, these two people have violated a statute. Would any of you have any trouble finding them guilty?" And 16 Americans, not one of them under the age of 30, said, "Nah, they broke the law. I don't think the law is a very good law. My God, wearing purple? How ludicrous can you get?" But 16 Americans said, "Well, he broke the law, so he's guilty." Wow. I knew that I wasn't going to be on this panel very long if I ever get called over there. And the following day, I did get called over there. The judge gave his caveat, and one of the caveats was, well, we have any trouble finding these people guilty if just because they're defending themselves against 17 felonies. I didn't have to say a word. When he got done, he looked at me and he said, "Sir, I perceive by your body language you have some problems." I said, "Yeah, I do." He said, "Well, explain them." And I said, "Well, I was here 2 days ago and you were reproving the defendant on a matter. And I think I know what was going on." He said, "What do you think is going on?" I said, "Well, I think he wants to have an attorney, but he doesn't want to give up his right to defend himself. He wants an attorney there to help him deal with court procedures. He doesn't want the attorney to take over for him." Now, I'd learned in a previous case when I was a plaintiff in a situation, I began to speak, and the judge said to me, "Mr. Beck, you cannot speak. Your attorney must speak for you. You do not address a court unless we ask you a question." Wow, I was learning. I was a defendant. If I allow an attorney to represent me, that's because they consider me incompetent. So I finally got dismissed from the courtroom, but I did something unlike what other jurors do. I came back the next day and sat right behind the defendant, so I took them out to lunch because I wanted to find out what happened. And in fact, it was true. He had gone out to lunch with an attorney. The attorney came back into the courtroom, stood up, unbeknownst to the defendants. The judge asked the attorney, "What's your assessment?" And he said, "Your Honor, based upon my time with the defendants, I would highly recommend psychiatric evaluations." Wow. Wow. So obviously, the defendants found out being blindsided by attorney might be kind of the standard operating procedure in the courtroom. They ended up defending themselves. I had a chance to talk to them more, and that's when they introduced me to Jack and Margie Flynn. Jack and Margie Flynn have been using the power of paper for over 6 decades. And literally have over 10,000 victories of one nature or another. Now, I consider my five times that I've used the affidavit as victories. The only one that absolutely be considered a victory was when I used the affidavit process on a traffic case, another rolling stop. I have to admit to the audience, they are looking at a recidivist. I cannot stop stopping. I should say I cannot stop not stopping.
Right.
When I can see 100 feet in each direction, I come to a stop sign, I slow down a lot, and then I just go through it like 98% of the other people do.
Mm-hmm.
But for some reason, I think God wanted me to learn lessons by going to court. So I did for over 20 years, fight every last ticket. It was when I used the affidavit process, I went to court. The deputy walked in, he looked at me, he gave a piece of paper to the bailiff gave it to the judge, and literally in 3 minutes, I was gone. Mr. Beck, your case has been dropped, you may leave. That was number one. And that's when I realized this process works. I didn't have to say a word in court. What I did is I sent a letter to the deputy sheriff who gave me the ticket. I'm following Jack and Margie Flynn's process. What I'm doing is simply giving him an opportunity to make things right without having to go to the next level. When I send a letter to him, he gets the return receipt request green card that has to sign. I know he got my letter. After 30 days, I then sent him the affidavit. Now, my affidavit spells out exactly why government officials must answer. Because if they don't answer, everything in the affidavit can be used against them in a court of law. The key thing, Dale, is I'm not writing this to an agency. I'm specifically sending an affidavit to an errant, a government official. Now, it might blow most of your listeners away, but in reality, almost all traffic stops are not constitutional stops. It's all dependent upon contract that you have with your driver's license. And I have a driver's license. I don't have a problem with having a driver's license but the point is, I very seldom drive. When I'm using it to transport somebody, if I were a Uber driver, I'm in commerce. And if I'm moving cargo, these truck drivers, they're drivers. I'm technically a traveler. The Code of Federal Regulations makes it very clear that driving is a commercial activity. So I put that in the affidavit. I also put in a court case in California. It's similar throughout the country to your listeners, but these 2 points were in the affidavit. And I'm certain that when the deputy got the affidavit, he didn't throw it in the trash. My God, this is an affidavit. The guy sent me a letter I had to sign for it. Now I've got an affidavit I have to sign for it. I'm sure he sent it up to a high-powered attorney in the sheriff's department, and the attorney said, for one other reason, I'm sure he didn't specify it to the deputy, basically said, just let this guy go. They never tell you why you win, Dale. They'll never tell you why you win. But I won. That was a $240 fine. It cost me all of $9 2 times. My affidavit never costs me anything because my bank does them free. But when I mail them with return request receipt, then it costs me $9. So $9 twice. And I had to go to court. That's certainly not free time. But nevertheless, I won. After 4 losses on trying to fight traffic tickets using the Constitution, I didn't follow common law process. Process number 1 in common law, the first rule of common law, is called notification. You have to notify your opponent. You have to give him grace so that he doesn't make mistakes. That's why if I perceive a problem, I send an affidavit to the potential adversary in advance. And I carry it with me in my car. So if I have a problem, I present the affidavit to the police officer, the deputy, the highway patrolman, and I specifically say, oh, you're the highway patrol. Well, then you get, let's see, you get this one, because this one has got your boss's name on it. Now, when reading an affidavit, it's got your boss's name on it. I'm pretty sure you're going to read it, especially when it's only a page and a half long. But that was sufficient with the deputy to get that reversal, that dropping of the case. And that's where it began, Dale, with a simple traffic case. As I say people, traffic court is kindergarten law. That's where you go to learn the very beginning precepts of going to court. And I've got so much more to learn, but I know so much more than the average guy.
Yeah, you know more than I did. I got a question that popped into my head, because I know lots of people that have them. Over the years as a drug and alcohol counselor, I had to deal with them, these guys and women. Would the power of the people work in a criminal case and a felony case?
Let me ask this. Is there a victim?
Yes.
Then you probably want to talk to an attorney.
Okay.
If there's no victim, you shouldn't even be in court. Victimless crimes, so to speak, are what they call positive law. Law is supposed to narrowly define what you're not supposed to do. It's not to tell you what you must do. When they tell you must do something, then you go to the Constitution, you realize, well, that's an abuse of power. That's a violation of my rights. I put that in an affidavit and I send it to the person, and it got dropped with the traffic case. Now, if there's a victim, you have a responsibility to remedy that. Now, let's assume, though, they say there's a victim and you know there isn't. For instance, all this terrible thing that took place on January 6th.
Right.
Where you got people who are just standing around outside. They never even went inside. And they're being indicted. I would say in those cases, you would probably be better off defending yourself than getting an attorney.
Yeah. Well, I'm specifically wondering, because I dealt with these men and women, because I had women in my groups as well who were convicted of sex crimes. And they get put on they serve their time in prison or jail, whatever they get. Then they are put on lifetime registries. There's no victim then. You served your time in prison. You served your time in jail for your crime. But they got you hooked for life on that registry.
Well, I say there may be some grounds for action there, but I've never thought about that particular
Well, it
situation.
popped into my mind because my job before I retired was a drug and alcohol therapist. I spent 24 years doing it, and I've seen all kinds of clients over the years, including sex offenders.
Uh-huh.
Now they've got it where you have to, now they changed the law. I mean, I found out in California, maybe Colorado, okay, because that's where I'm at. I'm in Denver. But they may have changed it here, I don't know. But in California, I was told that they have to attend not a gender, but a crime-specific group, a sex offenders group. Nobody in there but, and a specially trained counselor.
Here's a word for you, Dale. Mens rea. Mens rea.
That's
It
right.
means guilty mind.
Yes.
Okay, now, here's the point. A lot of times, people are convicted of crimes, and the district attorney never proved that guilty intent.
Yeah.
The defense attorney didn't even bring it up. The court has to prove that you had guilty intentions when you committed the crime. If you're unaware of the crime, you can't be guilty of it.
Mm-hmm.
Common sense says you don't go around hitting people in the face. You
Right.
don't slander people making up stories about them. You don't shoot people. Common sense says you don't do certain things. But then there's a lot of gray area where you might have done something you realize I didn't think I was hurting him at all. You got a point there. And I know that those people that were on the grounds on January 6th, it's sad to say, but I'm venture to guess that their attorneys never brought up mens rea.
No.
See, the thing, I was talking to an Orthodox priest who prior to becoming a priest had been an attorney for 20 years. And he said he had to quit because he said more and more he realized to take your client's position against the government is a good way to go out of business. If you defend your client against something that the government's doing, that can be very corrosive to your profit margin. But if you're defending somebody against some other person, you can probably use the law to the max.
Yeah.
But you got to be careful when you're representing somebody in court and there is no victim. There's no personal victim. Those guys being on the grounds on January 6th. If they were throwing things at the police officers, that's another story. But in a lot of them, there wasn't any evidence at all that they were acting in any violent manner. But they all got slammed.
Yeah, they did pretty badly too.
True.
I was just curious about that because some of these guys that I met in my groups were horrible people and needed to be there. Some of them were just made a stupid ass mistake.
Yeah.
But I strongly believe in two things. One, every law against guns is against the law, unconstitutional. I believe that just wholeheartedly because the last four words of the Second Amendment says, shall not be infringed.
Right.
So when they make a law against guns, they're infringing on my right to carry a gun.
Yes, absolutely.
They're constitutional. The second one that I firmly believe in is some of these laws that are punishing people for life. They got got a registry in California for arsonists, a list of arsonists. So every time there's an arson fire, they go to this list and say who might be the perpetrator. It's the first place they go. Look at that list. Who's the perpetrator? They don't go and look at the evidence. They go look at their list.
Well, all I can say is it's very important to look at each situation distinctly different and get to know the laws. I make a point here. A statute is not a law unless it's constitutional.
Right.
So if it's a valid law, you have to adhere to them.
Right.
If it's a statute, you have to question it, whether or not, well, was there a victim? There's no victim, why it's never going to be a valid law.
There's no victim except them.
But if you're lighting a fire that causes damages to property, and of course you're going to have to pay for that.
Yeah.
It's all about restitution versus retribution. We would do a whole lot better if these people who are, say, breaking in and stealing merchandise up to $950, it would probably be much better use of our time if they had to sit in a room and talk face to face with the merchant that they stole the merchandise from.
Yeah,
Let the merchant give the guy a good understanding of what it does to his profits, what it does to his employees, what it does to his customers when you're doing all this theft.
yeah,
Having a judge lecture you, never the same as having the victim lecture you.
I totally agree with that statement.
That was Chuck Colson's whole point. You remember Chuck Colson?
Yeah,
Okay, well, he started out after he served his time in prison. He came out and he started a justice group, and basically the whole thing was trying to get away from retribution and move towards restitution. Have these people restored to society by having them in part pay for what the damages were, and also have to meet the victim and let the victim have their time.
well, all victims of crime suffer from PTSD.
Say again?
All victims of crimes suffer from some form of PTSD.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay. So I see that can be a problem unless the victim themselves have gotten pretty good therapy. That could trigger them pretty badly. What you're saying. So I'm in favor of
You're more of an expert on that than I am.
if they got the therapy before they met the perpetrator, then I'm all for it, 100%. But I don't want to see some poor victim getting slammed into talking to a thief, say, or somebody that broke in, and he's suffering from PTSD and get triggered.
Uh-huh.
That can cause more damage.
Okay.
See what? Okay. You were talking about the positive law. That's a legal, you say that's a legal law, constitutional law, correct? Positive law?
Positive law is where you are told to do something.
Okay.
That's not common law. Common law is what you're supposed, not what you're not supposed to do. You're not supposed to hurt people. I want to give you a good illustration of common law.
Okay.
Here's two analogies. Both of them have to do with police officer. I was talking to a police officer. I use this with many people, not just police officers. But the police officer shocked me because I said, you're walking down the street, you look across the street, and two men are mugging a woman. What would you do? Most people would say, I'm going to call the cops. It's not going to help much.
No.
Some people say, I'm going to go over and stop them. Bravo. Some say, I'm going to yell at them, tell them to stop. But I had a cop actually say, I would just keep on walking.
Oh my God.
I said to him, well, let me change the scenario just a tad. The woman being mugged across the street is your mother. Now, what are you going to do? It changed everything. He's not going to keep walking. That's his mother. Common law is that's your mother, that's your brother, that's your sister. We treat everybody the same. You're willing to lay down your life for your mother. Why aren't you willing to lay down your life for your brother? Well, I know it takes courage, but it's the right thing to do.
Yes.
And in common law, if you did nothing, you could be held guilty for the same crime as the two people mugging the woman. You have a responsibility to do something.
Even
The
if,
degree of your involvement is up to you, but you must do something.
so that's even a civilian?
Yes. Yeah, not just a cop, that's all of us.
Yeah, that's a civilian. Okay, so that's the entire population. Yeah, it's a duty to, what is that? There's a term for it, I believe. When I was in law enforcement, I heard it once. That was 30 years ago. I can't remember it was a duty to do something. It was a duty to help, but that's not
Oh,
what they used.
and for one thing, it's a Good Samaritan law.
That's the one I'm thinking of.
If you do something trying to help and it ends up hurting them, you're not guilty. You tried the best you could. You made a mistake, but you can't just let somebody die. That's
No,
what George Floyd up in Minneapolis. There were a handful of people who were just standing there telling the cops, "Stop that. He's hurt. You're hurting him." It's too bad one of them didn't just say, "Hey, hey, this guy's going to die. We need to help him."
yeah, so sometimes that's all it takes.
I want to give you the other situation.
All right,
Police officer is trained. Somebody's coming at you with a knife or a club, and their intention is to hurt you. Police officer trained to do what?
defend himself.
With what?
His gun.
And where's the gun? Where's the bullet going to go?
Gonna go into the person that coming at you with the knife or the club.
Yeah, they're going to put it right here in the chest.
Yeah,
Okay,
the largest body mass.
right now. So I said this to a couple of police officers. I said, "Does it matter who the person is that's coming at you?" And right away they think, "Oh, no, if he's black, Hispanic, white, woman, I don't care." That's not what I'm talking about. What if the man coming at you is your son? Now you're trained to put the bullet in the chest because its likelihood of his surviving that is not high. And he's certainly not going to hurt you. More than likely, he's going to die. If that's your own son, I don't think you're going to do that. I think you're going to figure out 5 other ways to try and disarm him without killing him. That's why I ran into Dale Brown up in Detroit. He trains police officers how to use psychological methods in order to disarm violent situations before you have to disarm a violent person.
Mm-hmm.
And what was extremely interesting to me was going to his website and looking at 7 testimonials by hardcore police officers in Detroit, all of which have at least 15 years of experience, and all 7 of them said the same thing. Why weren't we trained like this? More people would be alive and we'd have a whole lot less lawsuits. So, as a person who's been against violence all my life, beginning with the Vietnam War and seeing the tragedy of that stupid war, I really embrace the philosophy that if police officers are trained properly, and what Dale Brown does is train them to become very proficient in the use of their hands. They know how to disarm people using martial arts. Better than a person has a broken collarbone than he's dead.
Yes.
And that's what he trains the police officers to do. And here's the thing that's really quite interesting to me. When a person knows how to defend themselves with their hands, they're far less likely to have to use a gun out of fear. Police officers are human beings, and they can fear for their life, just like all of us. But when you have a high level of proficiency in martial arts, your fear quotient goes way down.
Mm-hmm.
You're able to handle the situation with a whole lot less emotion and with more rationality.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that it's important that Police officers be properly trained in all forms of self-defense, including martial arts.
Yeah.
I got a
With
question.
martial arts, you have to be in good shape.
I've seen some pretty fat cops that are not in good shape.
I know, because they're going to use their gun. They're not going to use martial art.
Yeah, they're gonna need something. Less pizza for breakfast.
Yeah.
Uh,
I would like to pause here just for a moment to mention the free gift. The free gift is a template of the affidavit that I use.
oh, okay.
The first paragraph specifying why the official must answer, and the last paragraph pointing out that everything in this affidavit can be used against you in any court in America. If you do not rebut, everything can be used against you in a court of law. So that's what the free gift is. I'll get in. I'll talk at the end as to how you can get the free gift.
Yeah. And we're not, yeah, we got a little while. We can go to 11. That'll be about 10 minutes over my hour, but I don't care. We started about 10 minutes early. You got here on time. That I totally appreciate. You got here on time. You know what that
Okay.
means?
I got time.
Yeah, when you get here on time, that means you're 15 minutes early.
Oh, that's right. We did start 15 minutes early.
Yeah, we did. So,
Okay.
if we go over, we go over, and we just have a longer podcast. That's all.
Well, what's your other question?
Another question is, what do you mean by the conflict of interest in positive law?
Well, that's an easy one. If the government is giving out fines, where does the money go? It goes to the government. So they have a conflict of interest. They're receiving the proceeds from their fines and levies. That doesn't make them a very unbiased judge or law enforcement person. So in these positive law cases, there's always a fine.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to my assemblywoman, and I took with me a friend of mine who lost her husband due to a foolish action of a driver who ran into his motorcycle and he died. And my question to the assemblywoman is, why isn't some of the money that goes to all these traffic fines go into a pool to assist the widows of people who lose their husbands? My friend Shelley lost her husband, went to court, and the only thing that the court did was said that the person who caused the death had to pay Shelley $5 a month for the rest of her life. And for about 6 months she did, and then after that, even the $5 a month went away.
Yeah,
She got nothing from the court.
that's sick. $5 a month doesn't even buy a gallon of milk anymore.
That's right.
I mean, come on, give me a break. I think you got a good idea there that there ought to be restitution to the victims, because again, she's a victim of a violent act. She is, because it's her husband.
Yeah.
That gives her PTSD. So at the very least, they need to pay for her therapy. The very least. And more than that, I believe. Because that's, come on, poor woman, she's without her husband for life.
My rolling stop was $240. Rolling stop, $240.
Yeah.
I know people get speeding tickets in Montana, it's only $50.
Well, I got a
California.
rolling stop ticket in Glenwood Springs one time, which is Worcester here. And cost me $150. But I don't know where it went.
Well, most of it goes to the state and county. Very little of it goes directly to the police department. But then the police department, based upon the number of tickets they're doing, gets money from the state. So it all works through the profit motive of everybody, let's write more tickets.
Right. No, I was a police officer for about 6 years in Glenwood, in Newcastle, a little town outside of Glenwood Springs over west of Denver. And I once gave a ticket to to a city marshal. To the city marshal, I was crowd control on a fire. Now, it's against the law to drive over a fire hose.
Okay,
It really is. They've got ramps that you can drive over the ramps, but if they don't have the ramp out there, you can't cross that fire hose. Because you could break it. The
right.
pressure's so great, if you drive over with a car, you could break the hoses, which creates all kinds of problems with the fire. Also, the area was closed because of the danger, so he couldn't go into the area. And he ran over the fire hose, and he went into the area where he shouldn't have been because he wasn't a trained firefighter. He was a cop. And I gave him a ticket and got it, and it stuck in court. He paid $1,000 fine, I believe it was. It's 30 years ago. I don't know how much it was, but pretty hefty fine they gave him, and it cost him his job.
Uh-huh.
So now some cops have no problem giving tickets out. I was one of them.
I've got a couple more cases that I used the affidavit on. Your listeners might want to hear about them.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, well, we had during COVID, our sheriff in Riverside said he's not going to enforce any of these mandates from the government because they're not laws, they're just mandates. But we had a county medical officer that was putting pressure on businesses to close up. And he was sending out his troops, intimidating people, and they were shutting down their restaurants. I have done enough study on this to know that even the federal laws were being violated because according to, I think it's 21 CFR 50.24, it's necessary for the government to go through a process of setting up institutional review boards made up of people who don't have any monetary interest in the outcome. It was never done. It wasn't done in the states. It wasn't done in the Fed. And nevertheless, they were trampling on the rights. So we put an affidavit, we sent it to the medical officer. We pointed out to him his violations, not only of the Constitution, but also of the actual constitutional laws. He did nothing. That's exactly what we expect. But here's what we did. We took that affidavit, put it in an envelope with another affidavit to the 5 supervisors. Like I sent mine to my supervisor, and some of my friends sent theirs to their supervisor.
Yeah.
So they all got affidavits saying, hey, this guy down here is violating the law. What are you going to do about it? We're putting the pressure on them. Interestingly, there's more to it, but I want to get to the end quickly. He ended up resigning and moving to Australia. He walked away from a $250,000 job to live in Australia without a job.
Good for you, because he didn't need to be. The whole COVID thing was totally illegal.
Right. I walked into Best Buy. This is the number one of my affidavits. I walked into Best Buy and they said I had to have a mask on. I said, I don't have to have a mask coming to a public facility. Well, it's a mandate. I know it's a mandate, but it's not a law. You might as well say I can't come in here because I'm black. No, you can't say that, and you can't say I can't come in here unless I wear a mask, because no institutional review boards have ever been set up. They didn't follow the law. So I put an affidavit together. couldn't put this one in the mail though, because it's a corporation. I had to drive 40 miles and present it to the corporate receiving station. When you do this to a corporation, there's always somebody in the state that receives these kind of documents.
Mhm.
I took a witness with me. We gave them the affidavit. It was sent then by this person to the corporate headquarters in Minneapolis. 4 months later, we went to court, and Best Buy had to send a representative to represent them in court. People say, well, did you win? Well, look here, I wasn't looking for money. I was looking for them to stop their process. They had already stopped doing the math by the time we went to court.
Yeah,
I was happy. To what extent did my one affidavit make? I doubt if it made much at all. It was a corporate decision, but it didn't hurt.
no,
The main thing to me was, yes, I won because they had to show up.
yeah,
If they had to show up, well, if they had to show up for me, then they have to show up for you. They have to show up for you, you, and you, and you. And they're not going to want to keep doing that.
no,
So they're going to research the law, find out he's right, and they're going to stop their process. Now, I add this. The commissioner on the case was just blatantly ignorant. She was making more mistakes in 5 minutes than Carteret's pills. I mean, she was just wrong. So, okay. What I did is I filed a claim against her with the grand jury, and then I sent her an affidavit. And the affidavit spells out exactly what she did wrong and why she will never be able to sit on another case where I'm a defendant or a plaintiff. You have violated your oath. When you don't respond to my affidavit, then you agree with everything in my affidavit, which says if you don't rebut, you're violating your oath. They violate their oath. It's very serious.
yes, it is.
But we have to learn how to make them accountable.
Mm-hmm.
And that, Dale, requires what I call critical mass. In Riverside, I'm saying I get 30 people doing what I'm doing, and we go after, because right now we're going after our attorney general and what he's up to. I get 30 people who file the affidavit on the attorney general. We will then collectively take him into small claims court.
So
Why
he-
small claims court?
He has to show up 30 times.
Yeah, he can't send anybody to represent him.
Not small claims.
He's got to show up,
Yeah,
or he's going to have to tell us why he doesn't have to show up, and then we'll research the law on that. It's
yeah,
a chess game. They make a move, we make a move. And
Yeah.
this I have learned. I have learned law by doing law.
yeah. This may be
Correct.
interesting because I'm filing a case against Jefferson County and the state of Colorado
Uh-huh.
because they're not giving me a number. In 4 months, I've heard nothing. And they need to give me a number to create a trust fund that I'm required to have. But they won't give me the number, so I'm talking to the attorney Monday. I've already hired her, but I'm gonna talk to her about something like this. So
Remember, an affidavit that I use never is to an agency. I want to know who the guy is who's in charge of that agency.
I have it.
Then that's who you put the pressure on. He can't hide behind an agency. He's responsible for the oath of office. I was a public school teacher for 7 years. I had to sign a piece of paper that says I would defend the Constitution of the United States.
Right.
Every government official has to sign a paper like that,
Mhm.
but then nobody ever holds them accountable.
Right.
Key thing is, when people pass a bad law, I want to know who sponsored that bill. Who's the author of that bill? That's who we go after.
Yeah.
That one person.
Right. Yeah. Oh, I've got her name, phone number, email, fax number. I got everything. And I got it in
Okay,
writing too. And I have it in writing.
very good. I see we're running out of time, so
Yeah, so let's get that address out here.
I want to say this. On 9 p.m., now I know this is in California, it's a Pacific zone. I do a Zoom call every Thursday night at 9 p.m. And I'll give you my ID.
All right.
Put that up for people if they want to come on Thursdays at 9 p.m. on Zoom, they can learn more. As to the free gift, I want you to go to the web browser and type in www.affidavitsecrets.com/coffee. That's www.affidavitsecrets.com/coffee. When the page appears, go to the bottom of the page and type in your cell phone number and check the box. Yes, I want the free thank you gift now. Within a few minutes, we will send you the free gift. While you're on the page, we would invite you to take advantage of the 50% discount offer on the Power of Paper course.
Okay.
Only available to people watching this video.
Yeah,
That's it.
people who, well, I'm gonna put this, like I said, it's right across the top of your head, just the address. And put free gift out underneath it.
Okay.
Right across the top, affidavit, secrets,
.com
/coffee,
/coffee.
free gift. So go to that address, they'll know to go to that address and get a free gift from you.
Yes. Dale, this has been a one fine day.
If I'm awake tonight, I'm usually doing nothing at 9 o'clock except drowsing. So I may come in and check in on you.
It's 10 o'clock your time.
Yeah, I know. I'm still awake. I'm doing something right now that's taking me to 1 o'clock every morning for the last 3 days.
Well, when people start bugging me, I might move it up to 7 p.m. or something like that. But right now, there's only a couple people coming.
Well, I want to learn more about this because I'm very intrigued by this whole mess, this whole thing.
Well, you need to get the free gift, Dale.
Yeah. Well, it's not only a free gift, but the affidavit itself is a free gift. It's given to us by our founding fathers.
Right.
And we ain't being paying attention to our own constitutions, what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, we gotta go. I
would leave one last word.
All right, you got it.
This comes from the Declaration of Independence. He, speaking of the king, has combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation. Mind you, the Declaration was created 11 years before the US Constitution. So Jefferson's not talking about the US Constitution, he's talking about the common law.
Right. Because they used the Magna Carta, which was basically common law.
Yes.
What the Magna Carta was.
Thanks again, Dale.
Oh, thank you. You've been a wonderful guest, Captain Kirk. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I'll try to get there tonight just to check on you. Because I'm interested. I want more knowledge. That's the way I am. I just want more knowledge.
Knowledge is king when
Right.
properly used right. It can
So
be.
I've been doing this for 5 years.
Uh-huh.
So anyway, I will talk to you and you have a marvelous day. Get some rest before tonight.
Okay.
Hello, this is Dale again. I just wanted to do this so you, the listener, can get a gift from Kirk. And it can be found on his website, which is https:// affidavitsecrets.com/coffee. A copy of the first paragraph and the last paragraph. I'm going to get one myself. In fact, I've already ordered it earlier this morning. I'm going to use it in a county official in my area. It will most likely take some time to complete. However, once it is over officially, I will invite Kirk Beck back for a second show to talk about how it went for me and his method of using the U.S. Constitution to redress grievances against the government at a local level. Among the questions Kurt answered are: what is positive law? What do you mean by a conflict of interest in positive law? He talked about winning several times using an affidavit or the power of the paper. It is not hard. It just takes a willingness to take on power, say no to power. That's a big thing that we have not been able to do a whole lot of.
Thank you for listening to the show. There are show notes and a place to comment at https://coffee-time-again.libsyn.com/website. He hopes that you liked what you heard and will tell others about him. Dale is attempting to get a following that both disagrees and agrees with him. He does not want yes men. If you disagree, wonderful. He is happy to have you here as a part of the Coffee Time Again team. Dale does not talk about the news of the day. He is attempting to give a history lesson that is just as important about what is going on in the headlines of today. Please do not hesitate to contact him. Just remember that Dale wants a clean show, meaning no cussing, name calling, yelling, or hate allowed. You can disagree with him and not be disagreeable about it. Support him and help keep this alive. https:// glow.fm / coffee dash time dash again.